Inventory is the #1 bottleneck when you first start vending. It's the most exhausting, tiring, whatever you want to call it, part of getting started. But the funny thing is, once you get rolling, once you've done a couple of shows, made a couple of deals, established a couple of relationships, sourcing gets so much easier. People start bringing you cards. You get first look at collections, and your table builds momentum. But the hardest part by far is getting through the beginning. So today we're going to break down where I source cards, what I avoid, how I evaluate deals quickly, and the type of inventory that actually moves. These aren't all hypotheticals. This is where I actually started when I began vending. I'm Taylor with Mount Silver Trading Company. I started vending at the beginning of 2025 and have built my table to over 6 figures without going into debt. This is episode 2 of my Zero to Hero Vending 101 series where we talk sourcing. But before we talk about where you get product, we need to talk about what kinds of product you need to be looking for as a new vendor. The reality is, if you're buying the wrong kinds of cards, it doesn't matter how good you are at sourcing them, they're just going to be dead weight at your table. Here's 3 rules I wish someone would have taught me early on in my vending career. Rule number 1, liquidity is king. As a brand new vendor, the easiest and most consistent cards to sell are going to be illustration rares, special illustration rares, and alt arts in the $10 to $50 range. That sweet spot moves consistently every single show that I've been to the entire time that I've been vending, and it appeals to the widest audience possible. Yes, having big chase cards look nice and bring people to the table, but the cash is made in that $10 to $50 range. If you want a solid foundation for your table, start there. My second rule is sticking to the stuff that you know, at least to start. Here's a mistake that every new vendor, including myself, made. Someone comes up to the table with a really cool vintage holo. You don't check for holo bleed, you're not looking at edge wear as closely, you don't know how to condition check the card. And you end up getting burned and losing a lot of value on whatever is traded away. The reality is, if you don't know vintage, you don't know how to condition check cards well, you're not super familiar with the eras that those cards are coming from, it's probably best to skip on that cool looking vintage holo. When you're starting out, lean into areas that you actually know. Do you love modern chase cards, illustration rares, special illustration rares, things like that? Focus there. Are you great at grading and have a ton of slabs? Build your table around that. You'll begin to expand naturally over time, but that foundation needs to be built on stuff that you know. And then as you get your reps in, you'll build your confidence and be able to take more swings at stuff out of your wheelhouse. Then rule number 3 for buying inventory is it needs to be at the right margin. That margin is the whole game here. Avoid the FOMO and don't buy into lots with a bunch of cool cards if the price doesn't make sense. You'll feel early on that you need to make deals that are outside of a range that you're comfortable in order to get the right amount of inventory, but you'll find very quickly that the card that you think is super rare and you're never going to see again actually comes to your table quite a bit more often than you would think. I bought a Lugia V alt art when I first started to have it at my table at basically 95% of market, thinking that that was a card that wasn't going to come by super often. During that same show, I had someone come up and trade in a better looking copy of that exact card to me for some other things that I had. I learned there that more than anything, your margin and your price point need to make sense. When you first start out, buying in at 80 and 85% can sometimes make sense, but you'll learn very quickly that if you stick to your margins and you buy closer to 70 to 75% for most modern cards, you're going to be just fine. All right, now the part that everyone's looking for. Where do you actually find inventory to vend? All of these are places that I myself have actually bought cards and been successful with flipping into inventory for my table. Starting off first, your local card shop can be a secret gold mine if you can take the time to build the relationships. The reality of running a card shop is that it's really difficult to reprice things, especially things that move quickly like slabs. It's not realistic to expect them to reprice and resticker all of their slabs if they carry them every day or every week. In the volatile market that we're in right now, You can get slabs at a really good deal if you happen to catch them at the right time. Talking to and getting to know the owner of your LGS is also really helpful because by consistently showing up and building that relationship, you'll get first dibs on a lot of things that come through so that they can get liquidity and you can get cool product for your table. Second, and probably the most common when I first started, was Facebook Marketplace. I get it, it's kind of the Wild West. You're gonna see a ton of fake cards, you're gonna see people price things at outrageous prices, but I promise there's some diamonds in the rough here if you take the time and do your due diligence. The two things you're really looking for on a Facebook Marketplace listing are very clear pictures of the front and back of all of the cards included, or at least the big ones, and a seller that knows what they're looking for. They have a price clearly labeled, no shoot me offers, and things like that. You can find some great wins on Marketplace that are great on margin and really cool cards in good condition. They're gonna be highly contested, so you'll need to be checking often. The third one, and my sleeper pick, is Reddit. There are a number of subreddits that are highly moderated that I've been able to make really great deals on with people who are looking to offload large collections. Because these sellers are moderated and vetted so well, the likelihood of a scam is much lower, and there's a built-in vouching system so you can see how many successful transactions each of these sellers have. Pokemon TCG Trades in particular is the best of the best out there and has dozens, even up to 100 posts a day of things being sold. One thing to be mindful of is people who are selling lots on Reddit at discounted prices will get snatched up very quickly. This is a channel that you need to check back often to be able to swoop in on those deals. The other thing that you can do is you can make buying posts on those subreddits, highlighting specifically what cards you want, what price or percentage of market you're looking to pay, and how big your budget is. These posts, though frequently downvoted, are actually really successful, and I've had some of my best purchases early on come from posts like that. The fourth and final way to source inventory is to do full collection buyouts. This requires a little bit more capital up front. This allows you to get a good mix of product from slabs, sealed product to singles at a variety of different price points. And this is where you can really snowball your inventory quickly. The most important thing here though is being able to evaluate collections quickly on the fly to make sure that the deal makes sense. So, how do I sort through a deal or a binder that comes my way to try and decide if it's worth my time? The first thing you want to do is identify the mix of product. Is it mostly slabs, singles, and about what price point are they landing at for the big hits? As you're getting a feel, it always makes sense to talk to the person looking to sell the full collection and understand if they have a price in mind, what they're trying to get for it, as well as why they're wanting to sell off. Understanding the motivation of the seller will give you a lot of information to be able to help close the deal. As you're evaluating the collection, it always helps to ask if they have a list of prices, but if not, you'll need to start comping things out. Make sure that you are double checking condition while you're doing that. One of the easiest ways to lose a lot of money is not condition checking a large collection and having it be worth significantly less than you paid for it. The last thing to be thinking about as you're looking to close these collection buy deals is the liquidity on the biggest hits in the set. This goes back to what we said at the top, but knowing what you're looking at and how easily you'll be able to sell it is going to be key. We've talked a lot about what to buy and where to buy, but I do want to touch a little bit on things that have tended to not sell for me. There are three main categories to non-liquid product in my mind. The brick slab, the scuffed up top chase, and the scalper special. Talking brick slabs, this is subjective a little bit. Obviously, every slab has some value, even the CGC 9s of random Japanese cards. You need to think in terms of what people who collect slabs are really looking for. For me, I started out with a ton of CGC and it just did not move. And so I pivoted away from that pretty quickly. Modern 9s are also a really tough one to get decent margin on, and there's not a lot of people who are looking to pay the 9 premium. The last thing that I would avoid on the slab side is any non-English or Japanese slabs. A lot of times cards in like Korean, Italian, or German will end up sitting because people aren't as interested in them. Second thing on the list is the scuffed up chase card. I've taken in early on a number of big hits that either have a pretty big ding on the corner or are very off center that ended up sitting in my case for like 6 months. If people are wanting to spend $300, $400, $500 on a big card, they're gonna want it to be in better condition than people who are shopping for $10 to $20 illustration rares. If you're buying big cards, make sure they're in better condition. I don't care what TCG Player Market says, an LP Rockets Mewtwo is probably gonna sit for you. The last one is the Scalper Special. Having sealed product, even modern sealed product, is totally fine, but there are a couple of things that I typically avoid. Full displays of sleeves packs from like Walmart or Dollar General, things like that, can look a little suspect. Like maybe you went in, pushed a 5-year-old out of the way, and cleared off a shelf. I'm not saying that this is always the case. There's obviously people who have distribution or other ways of getting those products, but it just doesn't look as good to the random customer coming up to your table. Here's a quick checklist as you're building your inventory for your first show. I would aim for 50 to 75 cards in the $5 to $20 range, enough to fill out a decent amount of a binder to have at your table. Then I would shoot for about 20 to 25, $30 to $50 hits. A handful of bigger chases over that price point to help finish filling out your case. And then I think it's always nice to have something ready and available to give away to kids, whether it be trick or trade packs, a bulk box with X's and V's under $1, or things like that. Whenever a kid comes to your table, just having a little something to give them will really brighten your day, and that keeps the hobby going forward. Now that you have your inventory planned and ready to go, you're all set for your first show. But how do you actually price those cards? Episode 3 is all about pricing, how you prep, comp cards for shows, and the biggest mistakes that vendors make as they're pricing their cards.